Welcome back, Tiger fans, to Rockin' Radio's football podcast. I'm Nate Edwards. That's Brandon BK Kiley. This is Before the Box Score. Welcome to Kansas State week. It is finally upon us. One of two 10-pole games this season. That's going to tell us exactly what the heck this team is and what the heck the Mizzou program under Eli Drinkwitz is. No pressure. BK, how you doing, man?
Real football is here, baby. Now, last week, unfortunately, we learned things about Missouri, and I've been telling you guys all along, you don't want to learn anything about your football team in the first 2 weeks of the season when you play Missouri's schedule. Unfortunately, we kind of did, or at least it feels as though we did. Sometimes, though, college football, as we know, can show you one thing and then reveal something completely different the next week. And I think what all of us are hoping as Mizzou fans is that last week was the fluke, and this week ends up becoming more of what the norm is if it goes the way we're all hoping that it can against Kansas State. So I'm doing well, Nate. I'm excited to watch a real football game, and hopefully this one makes us feel a little better than the last one did.
Let's hope. I mean, Middle Tennessee might end up being a pretty good team. I don't know. We've also seen Missouri teams struggle in the non-con and pull off big wins. Think of that 2010 Missouri team that struggled against San Diego State and then beat Oklahoma. Still one of the best moments, environments that I've ever been in sports. Also go back to last year. We don't have to go that far. Have a clunker against Auburn, almost beat Georgia. This stuff happens, man. Like you said, rarely are college teams consistent week to week. So you just never know. And here we are. We are in the precipice of destiny for the 2023 season. The discourse around this team has been pretty much exactly what you think it is. Eli Drinkwitz got up today. He's doing his little barbecue Q&A today. He met with the media earlier this afternoon. Sounds like, I didn't believe it, but it sounds like there might be some competition at the right guard spot. Again, I will believe it when I see it. That is currently manned by Cameron Johnson, the Houston transfer. Allegedly, we're going to have Logan Reichert and EJ Ndoma Ogar potentially rotate in to see what they can do. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. When he trots out the same starting five as last week, then it won't mean anything. And if we do see something different, that's fine. But BK, I mean, you know, when you learn these things, you talk about learning about your team. Clearly, this staff is learning things about their team as well. After week one is we need to change the snapper, and then you missed the extra point. This week is we got to change the right guard. I don't know. What do you think?
So this is what I actually kind of believe. And the reason why is because we saw this in fall camp. We were wondering all throughout fall camp, like, hey, you brought in Cameron Johnson, you brought in Marcellus Johnson. These are guys that you thought were going to be significant players for you, and you're kind of working them in and out of the lineup. And that's strange because last year the offensive line wasn't very good and you wanted to upgrade from them. So you bring in this guy that was an all-conference player under your current offensive line coach at his previous stop, and you bring in Marcellus Johnson, who came to Missouri because, hey man, I've got NFL draft aspirations and I want to show that I can play more than just one position on the offensive line. I want to show my versatility. And the results have been, hey, let's play the guys that we played last year. And I'm sure that's going to be better than if we played Marcellus Johnson and Cameron Johnson. And to be totally fair to Eli Drinkwitz on this one, I don't think Cameron Johnson has been particularly good so far. And Marcellus Johnson, when we've seen him, has been a penalty machine so far in very, very, very limited snap counts. So maybe it does make sense. I mean, we've seen it in the past. EJ Ndoma Ogar, while limited, can really open things up in the running game. And this is a team that is going to clearly lean very heavily on the running game. And that was Cameron Johnson's weak point, even when he was at Houston. So if you are going to be a remarkably heavy run team, well, then maybe EJ Ndoma Ogar actually fits what you're trying to accomplish a little better than the guy that you brought in from Houston, who may be more talented, but it's not always about talent. It's also about fit. And for this team right now, the fit is the guy that's going to be able to open some stuff up in the running game. So I kind of do believe it. I think they're at least going to open things up this week in camp or in practice, and then we'll find out what they end up doing in the game. I hate when teams do this, but I wouldn't even be surprised if it's one of those things where they give like Cameron Johnson 2 series, EJ Ndoma Ogar 2 series, and then make the decision from there in this game against K-State. I hate doing that, especially against a legit Power 5 opponent, but that might be the type of thing that they try to do.
I think you and I have both been really big EJ fans since he has been on campus. The issue, of course, is his health. He tends to get injured, which sucks. If it ends up being him, I'm fine with it. If it's a legitimate competition, again, I'm fine with it. This is part of athletics. It's creating internal competition to put the best ones out there. There's nothing wrong with that. You talked last show about putting your hand on the stove and getting burned and learning not to touch it. How many times have we heard Eli Drinkwitz say, I got to get better here, or we got to reevaluate that, and then nothing changes? So, like, if he's
done it on the O-line, though. That's the one thing that he has done is he's made flips on the offensive line. It hasn't always worked out, but they have made some changes there at times.
So, I mean, if he's actually going to do it, I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it. Find a way to run the ball, because that's most of the things that you're going to do. And like we said, I thought that there's a lot more options on offensive line. And again, through 2 games, we've seen 6 players. So, I like to see what other people can do as well. And yeah, it doesn't matter what you did last year. That was last year. You got to think about what you're doing this year. And if that means taking your All-American transfer and putting him behind the guy who's been in the program for 2 years, so be it. Put the best guys out there.
I would make a different change, by the way, to the offense. I would say, Mookie, you're not a starter anymore. If Mekhi Miller is healthy, he should be your starter on the outside going into this game. Mookie doesn't have to be completely relegated to the bench, but he's been your least productive player that's getting significant snaps. And yes, I'm including the offensive linemen in terms of the productivity of the quality of the blocks that they're making. Mookie's done nothing for you so far this season. When Mekhi Miller's been in, he's made plays. So I would just make that flip as well. I don't think that this should just be a one spot gets changed this week. I think that wide receiver spot where Mookie Cooper's at right now should be open for competition as well, and they clearly don't appear to see it that way.
I mean, assuming Mekhi Miller's healthy, that's the other thing. He missed the second half of last week's game with something. So, yeah, I would be good with that too. You're not taking away Luther Burden. Clearly, you're not taking away Brady Cook. But, I mean, frankly, I would say that it should be a constant, evaluation of what you have and what they're doing. I know that's not great for offensive line cohesion, but that's the benefit of playing an FCS team and a G5 team in your first 2 weeks. You figure out what you have 2 weeks into the season with, well, hopefully no repercussions of that experimentation. We just have not seen that. So if you're waiting to experiment and juggle 3 weeks into the season when you had that chance in 2 whole games, a little disappointing. But hey, at least hopefully he's learning something and maybe something good comes out of it at a bare minimum.
That's where I'm at as well. Nate Peat, need to see him more in this game. He had, 5 carries on 1 drive in that game against Middle Tennessee. Yep. And then we basically didn't see him again outside of the wheel route that he took for, 50 yards or whatever it was. Yep. More Nate Peat. You're going to need explosives in this game. And Nate Peat is a guy that can create those for you. Luther Burden is a guy that can create those for you. We've seen Mekhi Miller come up with a few of those because of what he's doing down the field to win in contested catch situations and to create separation while he's in man-on-man coverage. So those are the guys that you're going to need to rely on in a game like this. I've always heard it's about players, not plays. Find the players that can make the plays for you. Nate Peat can make plays, and we need to see a little bit more of him in this game as well. I know they don't trust him the way that they do Schrader, but sometimes you've got to be open to the guy that's just going to go out there and out-talent the opposition.
I talked about this in the Beyond the Box score that dropped today. This is kind of a bell cow offense. And by that, the offensive coordinator or the coach or whoever finds 1 or 2 guys that he knows can deliver, and then you just feed him the ball constantly. Lane Kiffin did this at Alabama. He did this at USC. He's doing it at Ole Miss. Tulane did a lot of that last year. Penn State does this sort of thing. And that's when you have a dude, you get that dude the ball. And this year you have Luther Burden, who is responsible for 6 explosive plays over 2 games so far. You also have Cody Schrader, who they want to be the dude and has had 2 explosive plays so far this year. Then you have Nathaniel Peat, who was one of 2 guys to do explosive plays against Middle Tennessee, including that beautiful wheel route. So if you want explosive plays, which Eli Drinkwitz has specifically cited before multiple times, we need to get bigger plays. We need chunk plays. Got to get the explosive plays. Play the guys that get you the explosive plays. Luther Burden's one of them. Nathaniel Peat's the other. And if you need to work in Cody Schrader, that's fine too. But that might just be how we do this going forward. Those 2 or 3 guys, and everybody else just pitches in when they can. There are worse ways of doing it in college because there's a talent disparity, but it's also got to work. And we have not seen it work against the P5 yet.
The nice thing is you've got the guys in the right positions to be able to do that. At the Power 5 level, or really college football in general, you want one guy operating out of the slot if that's going to be a guy that you're going to get the ball to a lot. We saw this last year with Eli Drinkwitz's offense with Dominic Lovett, and we've seen it last year as well for those that were watching at all. Fresno State did the same thing. They had a slot receiver that just won across the middle all day long. They were not throwing deep to him. He was a guy that won with crossers. He was going to run with drags. He was going to run with deep overs, those kinds of things. Like when he was creating explosives, it was typically after the catch, whether it was a slant, crosser, deep, whatever it was, maybe a post like we saw last week with Luther Burden. That is what you want your wide receiver to do coming out of the slot. And then the other one is just running backs, dude. Like you can run an offense through a running back at the college level in a way you just can't at the NFL level. You can do it at high school for sure, and then college you can do it as well if you have the prerequisite of a solid offensive line.
Right.
But those 2 spots are where Missouri has its explosives coming from this year, and thankfully those are the 2 spots where you want them to be. If it was an outside wide receiver and like a tight end, that's a little harder to be able to scheme for.
Yeah, that was the old the 2017-2018 Missouri offense. Now, you mentioned the crossers and the drag routes with Jalen Cropper at Fresno State, which dude rocked. That was Kirby Moore's last stop. That was his previous offensive coordinator spot. You went ahead and did some homework, did some math this week, and you looked at passing depth and passing charts for all of Eli Drinkwitz's quarterbacks and Kirby Moore's quarterbacks, and you found some interesting stuff. Why don't you tell our listeners about it?
Yeah, okay. So the genesis of the story was the following. Missouri has 4 passing plays of 20 or more yards this season. 4. They've played 2 games now, and they have done so against South Dakota and Middle Tennessee State. That is unacceptable. That cannot happen. Now, it is important to note here, a pass play of 20 or more yards does not necessarily mean a pass play that traveled 20 or more yards in the air. Right. That could mean a screen that ended up the wide receiver took it for 20 yards, and that's an explosive play, right? It does not matter how you get there. It just matters that you end up accumulating 20 yards on that play. So 4 pass plays of 20 or more yards on the season. Brady Cook is responsible for 3 of those 4 plays. One of them was CM Horn on a deep pass to Mekhi Miller as well. So, why is that? What's happening here? Well, part of it is they're running the dang ball all day long. So you're just not throwing that much. And when you don't throw very often, there's not a lot of opportunities to create explosives through the air. That is just like a fact of what is taking place right now. They're bottom 15 in the country in passing attempts. Just a very base level statistic. How often do you throw the football? They don't do it very often at all. They're among the low. They're down there with Navy. Let's put it that way in terms of the rate of passing the football. So, how often are you throwing it deep down the field? Pro Football Focus breaks this down in terms of 20 or more yards down the field. That is what they consider to be a deep pass. Well, this season, Brady Cook is attempting a deep pass, one that travels at least 20 yards down the field, 10% of the time. So if he's thrown 40 passes on the year, and just as a bare bones basic number, 4 of them would be traveling at least 20 yards down the field in the air. That is second to last in the SEC. You would be correct in saying that is not enough. They probably need to bump that number a little bit. However, I think some immediately hear that and say to themselves, well, that's why Brady Cook can't be the quarterback. You need to get somebody in there that's going to test it down the field a little bit more often. Okay. Connor Bazelak threw the ball down the field 12% of the time in 2021. That was 12th best in the SEC that season. Brady Cook, for context, was at 15% last season. So he actually was better at this than the last guy that you had in this offense. Now, you may be wondering, okay, but I thought this was Kirby Moore's offense now. Things have changed, right? Isn't that's supposed to be better? Kinda. But Jay Kaner, who was a good quarterback and was then drafted by the New Orleans Saints and has since been suspended for PEDs. Not great, Jay Kaner. He threw the ball deep 11% of the time, which is almost exactly where Brady Cook is at right now. And it is the exact midpoint of where Cook is at now and where Bazelak was at in 2021. So I say all of that to say this, Nate. Is this a quarterback issue? Yes. Is this a scheme issue? Yes. Is this an offensive line issue? Yes. Is this something where they are saying to themselves, because of all of the things that I just mentioned, we need to get the ball out of Brady Cook's hands as quickly as humanly possible? Oh, yeah. They are getting the ball out of their quarterback's hands faster than all but one team in college football so far this season. 2.2 seconds is the average time to throw on the year for Brady Cook. So this is scheme, man. This is how they are operating as an offense. They believe their best chance to win is to mitigate their offensive line, at least against the teams that we've seen so far. This could change, but so far the clear and obvious game plan has been mitigate the offensive line issues by getting the ball out of Brady Cook's hands quickly. And by the way, mitigate the quarterback issue of having a not super talented guy at the position. Get it out of his hands, get it to your playmakers. Most specifically, get it to Luther Burden as quickly as humanly possible, and then let that guy eat in space because we've got him in the slot now. That is the entire design of the offense. You can love it, you can hate it. If it works, I think more people will like it, but right now it is not working for a million different reasons. So I wanted to do a deep dive into what was going wrong, why they only have 4 explosive pass plays so far this season, and there are a million different reasons as to why, but that's basically what I came up with. Is this is how the offense is designed, for better or worse.
Receivers got to make those plays. When you're putting them in space like that, you find the small shifty ones to give it juke and go. Luther's been pretty good. He also likes to bowl a few guys over, which is cool. But Luther wins with yak. That's what this offense wins with. And we just have not seen it. You got a ton of yak with Nathaniel Pete catching a 49-yard wheel route, but like, how often is that open? The internet will tell you every time that you run it, but realistically, it's a check. So yeah, it's getting your players in space, and a lot of times that space is close to the line, and a lot of times the offensive line is moving to try and make some blocks so that they can clear it out, and the playmaker can go make a play. And that's just how this works. It might seem reductive, and especially from a fan base that literally saw Drew Lock throw it 60 yards down the field not even 5 years ago, it might seem painful and annoying. But I think a lot of this is that we, the collective we, the royal we, I'll throw myself in here, it doesn't look any different, and so we are anticipating no change in the win-loss column. We're going to lose to K-State. We're going to lose to Georgia. We're going to lose to LSU. We'll probably beat South Carolina. Maybe we'll beat Kentucky 6-7. That's what it feels like because that's what we see. But this stuff can work. This offense can work. And I guarantee you, the second that this offense wins 10 games, you're not going to be caring about the deep shots or lack thereof. You'll be like, hey, it's great that we're winning games. It's great that our defense kicks butt. It's great that the offense can get enough. Like, that's really the issue. It feels like we're not going to be advancing because the offense doesn't look any different. But when it does, if it does, however you want to frame that, you're not going to care as much. So we got to get the wins. We got to get the wins, BK. And unfortunately, K-State is in town.
Yeah.
And how does K-State work? Now, here's the good thing. Everything you hated about Middle Tennessee, K-State is the exact opposite of that. Okay? Middle Tennessee likes to huck it 20 yards and hope for a prayer. K-State likes to run for 3 or 4 and hope for a big break.
K-State's a lot more similar to what Georgia was last year, honestly.
Basically, yeah. Middle Tennessee's going to blitz their ass off on you and cause havoc, and K-State's just going to hover and we're just going to float over here and eat you, and then float over here and eat you. And it's just like, how do we get past it? So it is going to be stylistically much different than what we saw last week, which is what Mizzou struggled with. However, this is K-State. Just to give you an idea of what we're going up against, SP Plus sees them as the 15th best team in the country, the 16th best offense, and the 18th best defense. As a comparison, Missouri currently 46th in SP Plus, 64th on offense, 25th on defense. So it's a undefeated versus undefeated matchup. It's a sellout at Faroe. This team is going to be motivated to win because they got pantsed last year. They're going to be motivated to show something, right? Something to prove. That seems to be the thing that we're talking about this year because they just barely eked by a Conference USA foe. I don't know what to expect. I have been positive, Nate, all year. You've been negative, BK, so far. But I don't know. I really don't know what to expect because this team can be wildly different, and I don't know what K-State is going to be like on the road. But here we are on the precipice of destiny, BK. How are you feeling?
So I'm going to give you my honest answer to that question. Strangely optimistic. Like, I have no reason, none, to believe. They have given us zero reason to think, this is the team that can pull off an upset. However, I'm going to go off of more than just what we've seen so far this year. We've seen how this team loses, especially against teams like Kansas State. And while Kansas State specifically was the outlier last year, it's typically close, man. Mm-hmm. Like Auburn last year on the road, losing overtime, should have won that game. Georgia held that game close. On the road at Florida, close. Kentucky, close. Like, even the wins against teams like this are typically grinded out. What is the label that you have put on it? The hamburger.
Productive hamburger.
Yeah, like that's what this is, dude. A couple of years ago on the road at Kentucky, you lose by 7. BC, which played at that point in time pretty similarly to this version of Kansas State, you lose in overtime. Should have won that game if not for some stupid mistakes. Like, they find a way to make these games close more often than not. When it is a close talent gap. That outlier was last year against Kansas State. And so I think that comes to the forefront of your mind, and I don't blame you if it does. That was embarrassing. But this is at home. This is a different Kansas State team. While still very good, I don't think they have the same NFL talent that team had a year ago. Deuce Vaughn, NFL player. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, first-round pick. They had a cornerback that was like a second-round pick, I believe. They had some dudes on that team a year ago. Got some good players this year. Not sure they have any that rise to the level of those guys, except their defensive end to replace Felix, who I think is probably going to be a top 50 pick, but that's neither here nor there. Don't worry about that. I think this one's going to be close, man. I don't have the gumption to pick Missouri to win, but I do think this is going to be within a touchdown. So that's my honest to God thoughts, and it scares the hell out of me as a Mizzou fan that I have any sort of optimism about this game.
Look, man, half of Missouri's games end in one score. So you are well within an understandable reason to say it's going to be close because that's just kind of what.
And of the games that how many of them are against like an FCS team in the positive direction or against a team that they had no chance of beating in the negative direction, right? Like,
or South Carolina that we routinely beat by 14 or no reason whatsoever.
Yeah. Like it's basically like Bama and Georgia, other than last year, of course, like or Tennessee. Tennessee is really the one.
Yep.
They crush you. The teams that you know you're going to beat, you crush them. And then everybody else is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
And I do have the feeling that this game is closer to the middle than it is either of the other two spectrums.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. K-State is always going to operate better when it has NFL talent on there. And they did. And Adrian Martinez was not drafted, but that was a good quarterback that we kind of made look pretty stupid. 40% completion rate. He did not really get the yards that he liked to get on the ground. He had to really work for it. Will Howard is a pretty decent quarterback. Just another one of those overlooked mid 3-star guys that just happened to take to the system really well.
I really like him, by the way. I think he's good.
He's good. DJ Gibbons is another Junction City, Kansas 2-star running back who, oh, by the way, plug him into the system and he's a freaking All-American. This offense goes through Phillip Brooks, who, again, unranked receiver out of Lee Summit that nobody cared about. And he is like he's basically their Jeremy Maclin. Returns punts, returns kicks, little scooter receiver that just kills everybody. So this, don't look at the high school rankings. Like just like just like Snyder before Kleiman and just like Pinkel, it's not about what they were in high school. It's about what they became at the school. So it's the same thing. But you're right. They don't have that NFL firepower that they did last year. They still operate the same way. Ball control, much like Missouri, 3-yard run, 4-yard run, 3-yard run, first down. So really what this comes down to, and my preview is going to drop tomorrow. We're recording on Tuesday, so we'll come out on Wednesday. I mean, I've got 3 points for Missouri. I've got 2 points for K-State, but really it's who's going to win on third down, because K-State needs to convert third downs to hold on to the ball and make you frustrated, and Missouri needs to convert third downs so our cowardly coach doesn't give the ball away to the other team. Whoever does better there, I kind of feel like is going to be the winner of this game, and that's very simplistic. It's not going to work that way, but that's just my feeling.
I think you're going to need a fourth down conversion in this game.
Oh God, he has to at this point.
I'm serious.
He has to.
I know that we've harped on this so much over the last week specifically, but you look back to a year ago. So Chris Kleiman is super aggressive on fourth down. They attempted 30 fourth down attempts a year ago. How many would you guess Missouri had last year? Fourth down attempts.
3.
It was well over that. The lowest in college football was 7, but Missouri was at 20. 20 fourth down attempts in 13 games. They converted.
I don't remember a single one of them.
I mean, that was good for, and I say good for, 94th nationally, and a tie for 94th, where there were 20 teams in the country that had fewer fourth down attempts than Missouri last year. You have to be aggressive in a game like this, and it might lose you the game. Like, you just have to be okay with that going into it, where you say to yourself, all right, this is our spot. And you need to have a call in that spot that you believe can work. And that might be a misdirection run. It might be a pass play to Luther Burden where you're like, hey, we've been holding this thing in because we know we had South Dakota and Middle Tennessee the first 2 weeks, and now is the time. Release it. Like, go for it here. Those are the kinds of things that it's going to take in this game. Because you're right. Like, you got to be successful with the running game. You're going to need a couple of explosive plays in the passing game. You cannot turn the football over. You got to, all of the normal things, finish your drives, right? You got to come up with some explosive plays defensively as well. Create that havoc that we know that ends drives for K-State, puts them behind the sticks because they don't want to play that way. But ultimately, if you're able to come down with a 4th and 1 from the plus 45, and you extend a drive that otherwise would have scored you no points, and instead you're out there getting 3 or 7 because of that drive, that's the kind of thing that can flip this game on its head. And it just depends if he's willing or able to do it.
I was at the Missouri Tiger Club in St. Louis today, and I was taking some questions from the group, and someone asked me, how would you feel if Missouri lost to Kansas State? Just flat out. Like, how does that affect your outlook for this season? And I think we have been on this show talking about how K-State and Kentucky are basically your 2 test points for this season. It doesn't ruin like goals, but like it's going to tell you a little something. And I almost went with that answer, and then I stopped and I realized that I had a different answer now. If Missouri empties the playbook, so to speak, does a bunch of deep shots, goes for it on fourth down 2 or 3 times, like really does some sellout blitzes, gets creative in how they get Luther the ball, or like show me some 2 running back sets, like run the tee up, whatever, however it looks. If they get creative and lose, I'm not happy, but it would tell me that Eli has learned something and can do different things and can evolve into something different. If Missouri loses by any number of points and does the exact same thing they've been doing for the past 2 years, that's going to upset me. Because that tells me when you have a big game and a big moment, you don't change anything. And you said it last show, you can't win games running this style of football. And if he's not going to change, that's really going to bum me out going forward.
So here's my question for you. Say Missouri plays pretty similar to how they did last year against Georgia. They run it well, play ball control, come with a couple of turnovers, Cook makes a few plays here and there. Burden makes some plays here and there. And they lose by 3, 27-24. But nothing really changes in the way that they played. Like we talked about this last year, about the results versus the process, right? Georgia kind of dictated that game. They outgained Missouri 480-295. They had 14 more first downs than Missouri, and Missouri had 14 on the day. Missouri was 3 for 13 on third down. Like, it was mostly turnover luck that dictated that game even being close. Mm-hmm. How would you feel about that? Like, you're a Mizzou fan, you lose by 3, so you cover the spread, you exceed most people's expectations going into this game, especially given what last week was. How do you feel?
I mean, other than the fact that great teams cover, I would not feel good. I would not feel good for the reasons I just said. Like, you went into a big game in a season that you knew you had to make noise. You had to make big wins, statement wins, breakthrough in year 4, and you kept throwing a rock. Maybe they threw paper, maybe they threw scissors, maybe they threw rock. You just kept throwing rock. And sometimes that wins. Literally, sometimes that wins, but you're not changing. And that's going to really bum me out. It's going to get back to me calling Eli Drinkwitz a con man by relinquishing play calling duties and still having game management control. And then, oh, by the way, hiring a guy who has the same philosophy. Like, that's not going to inspire me to anything. I'll be glad that they kept it close, I guess, but this is the year to beat K-State at home while they're rebuilding. This is the year to make a run in the SEC with all these terrible quarterbacks. This is it. And you, once again, throw rock? I'm going to be upset, BK. How are you going to feel?
I mean, I'll be upset. I will. Because this is a pass-fail game to me. Like, at some point, you just got to win these games. And I've said it before, and I'm not even joking, dude. Like, I don't care how you do it. If you win 3-2, fine. If you win 73-68, great. I do not care. It is a pass-fail relationship between this team and its fan base right now. And if they are able to pass this test with a win, no matter what it looks like, the defense could score 30 of the 37 points.
Yeah.
And I'd say, cool, great.
Yeah,
you found a way. Special teams gets a touchdown. You end up faking a field goal and you throw a touchdown on it. The defense scores 2, one with a fumble recovery, one with a pick. So now you're up to 21 points. You win 28-24. Great. I don't care. Honestly, I don't care how they do it. Because we have seen too many times in the past them find ways to lose. Them do the opposite. Auburn last year found a way. Georgia last year found a way. Florida last year found a way. Kentucky, same thing. Hell, Wake Forest, same thing.
Yeah.
So it is time for them to come on the other side of that ledger and to find ways to win this football game. K-State's better. They're a better football team than you, but they're on the road, and you have never had more doubt than right now for this specific group of players. And if that doesn't motivate them, dude, I genuinely don't know what will.
Yeah. I agree. So I know we looked last time. Bill C was saying 30-20 K-State. What's your prediction?
I would go like 31-24, I think would be my current prediction.
Good guys or bad guys?
K-State.
Okay.
I don't have the guts to call it for Mizzou. What is it, a 5.5 point line now? Is that where
it keeps going down? I saw 5 earlier this afternoon.
5 is where it's at now. It's the over under is set at 48. I think I would take the over on that actually. Slightly.
24-20. I'd take the over,
But
although, man, Eli Drinkwitz has taught me to take the under every single Missouri game. So
and these two games, like the other thing about this is it's going to be a possession game. You're not going to get 20 possessions in a game like this. It's going to be limited in terms of the number of times that you're able to handle the ball, which makes every possession that much more valuable, which is why you should go for it on fourth downs in a game like this. But anyways, yeah, I think K-State wins by 7, and I think it ends up being a game that is super frustrating to watch because Missouri is on the cusp of being able to get it, and they just, once again, because they've taught me this, find a way to lose. Where are you at?
I think the game is decided by 7 or less. I have no idea. I'll say K-State. Like I said in my why not now, put up my shield, protect myself. Say that I saw it coming, so therefore I can't get hurt. I think it's going to be a touchdown game. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Something like that. 7 or less. And it's going to be close because that's how this always works. And I think it's going to be a good environment. I think it's going to be a great day to watch some football. And I just hope Missouri can reward us with a win. That's all.
Is it good or bad that it's 11 a.m.?
Man, Missouri fans have been born in 11 a.m. This is our jam. Like, you might think you play at 11 a.m. We play at 11 a.m. And I know that, you would prefer to have your fan base lubricated for 8 hours rather than 2.
Are you saying that others have adapted the 11 a.m. games and we were born into it and molded?
we are the bane of 11 a.m. That's right. Yeah. There's just, I think we're uniquely suited for it. So I think we would all prefer to be under the lights because it's an old Big 8 matchup and it's a big deal for us. But I don't think that's going to matter all that much, especially since that's just kind of where this team plays. So, also 6:30 kickoff, Missouri-Memphis. Did not see that one coming.
Yeah, ESPNU, baby.
I talked to the vice president of the St. Louis Sports Commission today at the thing, and he was like, "You know what? It's kind of like a bowl game. You tell them that you have a game, and they'll tell you when they're going to put it on." So there you go. So yeah, there's your night game in St. Louis. But I don't know. I do not know how this game is going to go. I still retain my right to be optimistic about this season. That is subject to change based off of how this game goes, and I reserve that right. But I think it's going to be a good game. And by that, I mean it's going to be close. Probably not going to be pretty, but I'm ready. I'm ready to get hurt again, BK. I really am. What are your parting shots for our listeners?
I don't know if I'm ready to be hurt again. I feel like I'm going to be hurt again, but I don't know if I'm ready for it. Like mentally, physically, emotionally, I don't know if I'm prepared for this because last week did something to me, man. It flipped a switch in me where I went from being, hey, this could be a good season for Mizzou. Not just because of what I think of this team, but also the surrounding teams in the SEC. Like, you look at the schedule and you're thinking to yourself, okay, like LSU, some cracks there. Georgia's not the team that I thought they were going to be coming into the season. There's some questions at quarterback at like every school in the conference. Brady Cook might not be as much of a downgrade compared to these other quarterbacks as we all thought he was going to be. In fact, for some of them, he would be an upgrade relative to what they have right now. And this defense should be so good. And so I was like, you can dream a little bit on it. And then that game happened, and it's just got me, my wires are so crossed right now where I'm almost like evaluating every game with 7 different ways of how it could go because of what happened last week. If I eliminated that game from my mind, if I just pretended that game never happened, I would probably be picking Missouri to win this game. But because it happened, I can't do that. So it's sent me into a lot of different directions. I'm in a glass case of emotion is what I'm trying to say.
You are.
And I'm struggling to figure out which side is up.
It's okay. We will get there together. We will find out what happens on Saturday. For better or worse, you're going to get a reaction pod from our beat guys, and you're going to get a reaction pod from us. We're going to talk about it. We're going to get it done. But that is our show for today. As always, we appreciate the downloads and the subscriptions. Leave a comment or rate us. We love all types of feedback from you all. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Nate Edwards. He's at BK Sports Talk. Of course, you can follow the Rockin' flagship at Rockin' Nation and our podcasting outlet at Rockin' Radio. We appreciate you tuning in this time. We'll try to do better next time. Until then, MIZ.
ZOU.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning into Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, just click the subscribe button below. Beep. And you can find this podcast through the Apple Podcast app or for iPhone, or the Google Podcast app for Android, or whatever app you use to listen to your podcast. We are also available on Spotify. Just search for Rock M Radio. And if you like other sports, Fans First Sports Network is a podcast network that has coverage of all other teams, Major League Baseball, MLS, NFL, whatever you want to listen and read about. It is a great network full of really fantastic podcasts. So look them up and subscribe to any and all of those podcasts. Rock M Radio will be back with more episodes coming soon. Thanks.